Yay! Back in the room with the unflattering lighting. Yeah, I told you guys I was going to try to make an effort with trying to get back in the swing of things and with filming, and part of that was trying to put camera makeup on and everything, and I did try to do that today, but I had a little bit of a disaster in my tiny ass bathroom because seriously, some of y'all probably have bigger closets than my bathrooms in this house. And according to my doctor, I don't even crack 5'6" anymore. I'm apparently already starting the shrink that is infamous with the women in our family. So a lot of times when I'm trying to do makeup, I'm trying to maneuver over a big sink with the mirror up on the wall that I can't like quite see very well in, and I was trying to do that this morning and I got powder freaking everywhere because I knocked into the wall when I was trying to turn around to put the makeup away, and it slipped out of my hands and exploded. And yeah, I took a picture of it because I thought you guys might get a kick out of that. But I don't know, I managed to get through a little bit of cover up, some eyeshadow and some mascara, so I'm basically school drop-off line ready, I would say. Anyway, part of that is also trying to get back into these videos that I meant to do a while ago, but I feel like as I'm starting every video here lately with everything that's been going on, they got pushed to the wayside. One of those things was the series I had started called Motivational Mojito. I'm gonna try to do that another one of those today. I wanted to do one for each month of the year, but you might have noticed I think I stopped at January because February is when things really started to start rolling downhill. So I didn't really get very far with that. So what I'm hoping to do is to go back. I had all of the months plotted out which books I wanted to talk about, so I'm gonna try to cram a little bit and get caught up on those videos till I'm back up to holiday era videos. So today I'm gonna do what was meant to be February's video. I don't know if you can see much behind me on my computer, but all those icons are various video ideas that I'm working on, that I'm trying to put together as I get little bits of time here and there. It's just been kind of tough to squeeze moments in, but for right now it's pretty quiet because little dog is taking his post-breakfast snooze and big dog is working his way through a rawhide, and cats know how to amuse themselves, so I have a little bit of a window. I swear since Finley came in the house, almost everything comes out of my mouth sounds like a new mom. Anyway, let's get started with this. So, let's see, I have a couple books to talk about here. Did I get all of them? Okay. So the first one I wanted to talk about today was this book I was sent for review called Your Next 24 Hours. I was sent this to review earlier in the year. I already submitted my review and everything, but never got around to talking about it in a video like I wanted to, so here we are. So this is by Hal Donaldson. He is the co-founder and president of Convoy of Hope, which is a nonprofit that helps communities in need across the world. He has been working with nonprofits for a number of years now, and this little skinny book is some of the stuff he put together that he wanted to inspire people with, some of the ideas he's picked up over his years of working with different other nonprofits and working in low-income or impoverished communities. So a lot of his experiences kind of came together, and he got this idea, especially with everything that's been going on in the world lately. He was inspired to write this book that looks at how can one individual person take their little corner of the world and make it a little bit better just by tiny acts every day. Because a lot of people think that, you know, it's just me, what can I do? I don't have enough power, I don't have enough influence, nobody's going to listen to me. But in this book, he shows you that there are little things that you can do every day to better your own life, better the lives of others, that can make an impact. You know, it's that whole ripple effect of, like, you know, drop the stone in the water and the ripples go out further and further. It's that idea. He kind of also leans on the anecdotes of various celebrities. Each chapter starts with a header quote from some well-known figure or celebrity. Like chapter 4 starts with Mother Teresa saying, "I must be willing to give whatever it takes to do good to others. This requires that I will be willing to give until it hurts." Or this one from Nelson Mandela that says, "Resentment is like drinking poison and then hoping it will kill your enemies." It's a quote that's referred to a lot. So he starts with that, and then at the end of each chapter he gives you kind ways. That's what he calls the little section, where he gives you ideas of little things you can do within your day that don't require a lot out of you necessarily. You don't have to give large chunks of money. You don't have to, you know, take months or years off of work. You don't have to sign up for a sabbatical or anything. These are just like little everyday things, little moments you can take out of your day to help either your own self health or someone else. And he also leans on the stories of other celebrities and kind of chimes in with his own experiences off of what they're talking about. The first thing I wanted to share in here that, like, right off the bat really just impressed me was I wasn't even into the book yet, and I was just looking at the blurbs of people that had things to say. And there's one in here from Vance McDonald, who's a tight end for the San Francisco 49ers, and he said, just this quote just floored me. He said, "It's easy to love the lovable, be kind to the kind, and reciprocate to those who have first done something nice to us. Ours is a world built around the bold and the beautiful, the pretty and the eloquent. But what about those who are seemingly unlovable, shy, unnoticed, less fortunate? Such people are all around us, and we often take them for granted. But as Jesus modeled, perhaps we could lift up their spirits if, through kindness, we simply just notice them." Your next 24 hours encourages you to do just that. My wife Kendi and I encourage you to read this book and use acts of kindness to lift up those around you. I'm like, that is one hell of a blurb to just start off with. But that gives you an idea of some of the inspiring stuff you're in for in this one. So I wanted to start with this passage that kind of gives you an idea of how the idea for the book came about and what the goal here is. So Donaldson starts by saying, "One decision can change the course of your life and the lives of others too. Maybe you desire more happiness or more purpose, but you feel trapped, helpless, overwhelmed. You're running on life's treadmill of to-do lists and unrealistic expectations. The speed is escalating and the slope elevating. You've said, if only I could set a different course. Well, that's what your next 24 hours is all about. This is your roadmap to making this day one of a more rewarding life. The decision before you is a door, but only you can decide whether to turn the handle and venture into the life you always wanted. By taking the first step, you're vowing to do the next act of kindness in front of you until it becomes who you are. You're saying you want to leave self-centeredness behind and invest in the lives of others. In other words, you want 24 hours of kindness to become a lifestyle. Along the journey, you'll discover that each day is filled with new opportunities to make the world a little kinder. Opening a door, flashing a smile, saying thank you, letting others go first, apologizing for a mistake, paying for a meal, complimenting the waiter, greeting a stranger, giving a kid a high five, and much more. On the surface, these actions appear insignificant, but collectively they have the power to change everything. Perhaps you've accepted the lie that one person can't make a difference in a world where hatred seizes the headlines and anger marches through the streets. After all, the enemies of kindness are fierce, and you're only one person. But what if every person was a relentless force for good? Overnight, a revolution of kindness would dethrone a culture of greed and self-centeredness, and the world would be a different place. You have more power and influence than you think. You might not be able to negotiate global peace treaties or single-handedly stem the tide of hunger and disease. But through your kindness, you can change your home, your workplace, school, your community. You can be part of a growing movement where kindness offers hope, heals wounds, combats loneliness, and restores the broken. You can change the world by becoming an agent of kindness and compassion. Your next 24 hours is a collection of stories and life principles from people who learned to love their neighbor as themselves. May they inspire you each day to awake more determined than ever to be a force for good. Read on and make your next 24 hours really count. So that gives you an idea where he was planning to go with this. And like I said, he just goes through and gives you different stories, some from his life, some from celebrities, that give you an idea of just little acts you can do. But he also wants you to be realistic about the idea, and he doesn't want to give you this idea that it's all, you know, rainbows and cupcakes and you just need to be kind and all the world's problems will be fixed. It's more making a decision to be the change for good in spite of everything that's going on around you. You may not see instant change. You may not have all the answers in your small act, but the fact that you're trying is going to make the impact. In his own words, he says, kindness and ingenuity cannot solve every social problem. Obviously, some issues require resources, cooperation, and hard work. It's become convenient to blame problems on insufficient funding, but often the cause goes much deeper. Many challenges go unmet because citizens aren't asking, what do I have? What can I do? They underestimate their potential as problem solvers and misjudge the assets at their disposal. Consequently, problems persist and people don't receive the help they need. If only more citizens could find the courage to try, there would be a fountain of ideas and a waterfall of good deeds. You're reading this book in part because you want to make a difference in the lives of other people. You want to see a movement of kindness transform your community and the world. You want less crime and conflict and more hope and compassion. But that will only happen if people like you move beyond security to action. Sure, you can play it safe. Lots of people do. You can doubt your abilities, question your assets, and choose to do nothing. But that won't change the world. That won't even change you. Believe in yourself and become somebody's miracle. It's such a little book, but there's so many lines in here that are just so quietly powerful and empowering. It's crazy. One of the kind of relevant things that really struck me in here is he talks about this thing he talks about social media and this thing he calls what was it, relational detachment, where it's kind of the idea of like the idea of social media and just the constant accessibility to one another everywhere is making it harder for us to remember how to interact, like face to face, and you know, just the whole phone addiction and all of that is kind of tied into this, and how it's affecting us mentally as a species. One study revealed that college students have 40% less empathy than their counterparts of 20 years ago. It cites social networking as a significant reason. Sean Parker, co-founder of Facebook and creator of Napster, described relational detachment as a possible result of social media. We talk internally about restoring intimacy in a world where social media has connected us to more people than ever, and yet somehow we feel more lonely as a result of it. Or at least I do. It's maybe one of the unintended consequences of having 1 billion people on social media and having 300 or more, on average, friends or followers. There's a certain loneliness that comes from having so many fast, superficial interactions with so many people. Social media has brought enormous value to society, but kindness and compassion are difficult to express from behind a computer screen or from a distance. On top of that, you know how many stupid arguments I've gotten into with people because of conversations we've had in text or IM or something like that, and it's just like the meaning gets screwed up because you're trying to talk through like emojis, or if you're not using emojis, they're just like, you don't have the benefit of seeing somebody's eyes, their facial changes, voice inflections. You don't have that to give you like social cues of what they're actually talking about. So fights are so easily triggered through social media. That just reminded me of that reading there. It goes on to say, consequently, you may need to apply the oikos strategy to your life. And no, that's not referring to the brand of yogurt. Oikos is a Greek word referring to 4 types of relationships: family, friends, acquaintances, and strangers. Make it your goal to show kindness to and be with at least one person in each oikos category every week. Before long, the practice will become a permanent way of life. There are a million excuses for not spending time with people. Perhaps you've used a few. You've told yourself, I've worked all day and I just need to chill out. I have to focus on my own problems right now. I want to watch television and eat ice cream. Or I'm tired of talking and listening to people. I'll send them an email. There's no need to feel guilty about having those thoughts and emotions. It doesn't mean you're selfish or unkind. Everyone needs space. Life is fast-paced and downtime helps you cope and find perspective. But if you're not careful, occasional retreats can become a comfortable pattern, and without realizing it, meaningful relationships can suffer because you're not investing in one another. So I thought that was an important thing to touch upon. Just some of the problems we have with depression and not feeling like we're worthy enough or important enough or strong enough. Some of it is triggered by just the technology of today. Another important topic he covers in here is something that, again, I've gotten in a lot of discussions with friends and family about, the idea of talking versus listening and listening versus actually hearing. Because I have a lot of people in my life who have passively listened to me and completely missed what I was trying to tell them. And especially in this, one of the things this passage had me thinking about was, well, first, before I get into that, I'll just share the part with you. He talks about kindness meaning seeing the unseen, hearing the unheard, and touching the unloved. Sometimes all it takes to send a message that you care is a simple nod, a sincere smile, a single tear, or just hearing people out. Every time you listen to their stories and hear the echoes of their lives, you spread a little kindness. Listening gives friendship a chance. Without it, one person is the narrator and the other is just the audience. Dr. Ralph Nichols, a listening legend, said the most basic of all human needs is the need to understand and be understood. The best way to understand people is to listen to them. The Bible also encourages listening. Understand this, my brothers and sisters, you must all be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry. James 1:19. Talking and listening at the same time is nearly impossible, and in most instances people are inclined to listen if you make your words count, and less inclined if you make your words mount. People prefer humble and sincere dialogue to high and mighty monologues. I don't know that that's always true. I know a lot of people, they get sucked in by people that talk a lot of big words and don't really back it up. But there is a point in there. Meaningful conversations build relationships, while condescending lectures bulldoze them. Remember, not every conversation needs to be about you. Instead of parking on your achievements or dropping names, learn to deflect attention and shift conversations back to others. Rather than wasting time chasing accolades, focus on pursuing deeper relationships. You're likely to have more friends if you're a good listener too, because people won't run and hide every time they see you coming. It's difficult to monopolize a conversation and at the same time benefit from one. Here are some simple ways to determine whether you're a talker rather than a listener. Do you speak in long, protracted sentences without taking a breath? Do you share your lunch plans, dinner menu, and weight loss strategies before asking how the listener is doing? While talking on the phone, can friends lay their phone down and go to the restroom and return without you knowing they left? Do you repeatedly finish other people's sentences? Can you hold a phone in each hand and carry on 2 separate conversations at the same time? There is a time to talk and a time to listen. Conversations demonstrate mutual respect, and with respect comes cooperation and collaboration. Discoveries are made and lives are changed when people take time to listen to one another. How many contestants on television's The Voice have been launched into lucrative recording careers because someone listened to their music? How many cures for diseases have been discovered because someone listened to a new theory? How many malnourished children have been rescued because someone heard a cry for help? The world is a fairer place, a kinder place, when people just listen. Listening also means hearing what people are not saying. Some are wounded, alone, afraid. Their jobs may be tenuous and their families fractured, and you'd never know it. They suffer in silence because they really don't know who they can trust. It takes someone just like you, who hears what's not being said, to reach out to them and offer encouragement. What I was going to say earlier was what that passage had me thinking about is, again, with social media, everybody gets so, well, no, I shouldn't say blanket statement, everybody, but a lot of people out there get so consumed with taking the perfect selfie and having just the right pictures for Instagram. Then they get caught up in likes and followers and, online accolades, and even on YouTube, trying to chase the YouTube dream of having someone pick you up, company, and be that YouTube star, and everybody's striving for that appreciation, but they're doing it in all the wrong ways, and they're going for the easy popular vote, and there are a lot of people that are suffering because the people that really need you to hear them are not being heard. And if you think about the correlation between, well, I don't know if correlation is the right word, but sort of the parallel existence of, I guess, of this need to have selfies and affirmations and appreciation on social media versus this shot up of depression everywhere. I hear all the time, how do so many YouTubers have anxiety and depression? I don't know. Probably because it's a community of isolated people who came to this platform because it was a place where they felt like they could be heard. But even in YouTube, that's getting lost because, again, people, followers, viewers, they're going after the easy, trendy, popular people, and the people that honestly need people to hear them, the ones that are struggling with anxiety and not feeling appreciated by the world and everything, they're still down here in the pits. And so that's just one example. I'm not saying that's the case for everybody, because there's a lot of people that aren't on social media, obviously, but still there is that dual existence of people trying to, that saying, chasing the Joneses. They're trying to live this outward life of something that people are going to give them props for, but they do that because that's an easy way to get attention. When it comes to something really hard, a lot of people tend to tune you out. A lot of people don't want to hear your hard luck stories and your problems. They want the easy way to be a friend. I know this from experience because I've lost a lot of what I thought were friendships over little things that times where I could have really used a friend, and they backed up and said, "Well, this is too hard. You're not happy anymore," and took off. And people that were good drinking buddies in the good times didn't stick around for my dark days. So yeah, it had me thinking on that, like I said, that dual existence of those things going on. But I like that he brought that up, the importance of honestly listening to somebody and not making it about you, and just giving someone that time. And that's, for me, that's one thing I learned, especially when I was a CNA. That was one of the biggest gifts you could give to patients. When I worked in the nursing homes, a lot of times that's all they wanted, because it still breaks my heart to think of those people that used to be my patients that were in the nursing homes. And just thinking about the families that just dropped them off there and walked away and sort of brushed their hands of them. And there were so many people in there that just wanted somebody to listen to them, just wanted to feel important again. That never goes away. That never gets any easier. That desire to have you matter to somebody. And so I'm glad he touched upon that was one way, is you don't have to spend a lot of money. You don't have to, make a huge gesture. Sometimes it's just as simple as just honestly closing your mouth and listening to what somebody needs to tell you without interrupting. Just let them have their say, let them tell their stories, whatever they want to get out, and just giving them the respect of that moment. So like I said, a ton of powerful stuff in here. One quote in here I wrote down said, "Fulfillment does not come from exceeding others, but elevating them." And although again, I was thinking of a few instances where fulfillment by exceeding someone does feel good sometimes, in the matter of like people who didn't believe in you, when you exceed them and their expectations, that does feel kind of good. But I got what he was saying though, and I did like that. He also talks about how when it comes to things that are really, really important, to not handle that through, just, at least solely through email or text. And it had me thinking of, during my dating years, I've been broken up through text, through email, through answering machine. Yeah, it's the actually getting broken up with face to face was actually less common than getting the awkward email or something going, "Yeah, I've been thinking." Don't do that shit. Just, respect the person enough to look them in the eye and say what you need to say. I've also been told about people who have died through email. Don't do that. It's like, if you can't get to them in person, at least give them the courtesy of a phone call where they can hear your voice. Don't do it through text message. It's tacky. So he talks about he also mentions that for feuds that are going on in the family, if there's a business disagreement, something really important to that, in that regard, where there are relationships at stake, don't leave it to a silent text or email and try to get off the hook that way. Again, it goes back to showing a fellow human common respect. He also gets into the science behind kindness, which is kind of cool. He mentions, basically boiled down, it's just doing kind acts, helping your fellow human being. It actually has been proven to raise oxytocin levels in your brain, which not only lower depression, it also strengthens your immune system. And it's also, bonus, a little bit of a natural buzz for you. So it encourages you to do kind acts more often, which is just win-win for everybody. There's also a statistic that says that happy people on average live 35% longer than not happy people. One other point he brings up, which I thought was important, is he also mentions that there is that element of sacrifice that comes with a certain level of kindness and compassion and helping your fellow man. There is a part to some degree that requires you to be sacrificial of your own needs, but the other side of that, when you start to feel bad about that or feel that you're having too much taken away, he encourages you to remember that sacrificing your own needs for those of others shows that you are trying to live above yourself. You're not making it about you. But again, it's all about balance. He also talks about how you need to also balance that with not saying yes to everything, because there are people that will take advantage of your kindness. Again, something I've learned the hard way over my lifetime. You put a little kindness out, it's really easy for some people to come back and just be greedy little hogs at the trough and try to get you to do everything all of a sudden. You need to be able to be strong enough to temper that and be like, whoa, you need to take care of you too. Which I thought was important. Is it's not just about other people in this book. He also gives you tips on how to, you know, strengthen your own well-being. Because, you know, that saying, you're no good to others if you don't take care of yourself. So some of the things he talks about, I wrote down some of my favorites. He has them throughout the whole book, but some of my favorites that he mentioned as far as like upping your kindness game. Oh, another thing before I get into that, he mentions is the Latin root for compassion. It actually means to suffer with, which I didn't know, but that's kind of cool. But anyway, the upping your kindness game. Some of my favorites that he mentioned was shop for someone disabled or elderly, arrange park outings for the elderly or lonely, parents pull your kids out of school. Not all the time, but every so often, give them a day where you pull them out of school and go spend one-on-one time with them for a day of bonding. Send a letter of apology to someone you've wronged, or forgive someone who has wronged you. Befriend someone that is socially struggling, has social anxiety. Get them out a little bit. Don't let them be too much in themselves. Maybe if you have some friends that are pretty easygoing and not too in your face, maybe introduce them to some of your friends. Give up your bus seat one day. If you're on public transportation, just give up your bus seat to somebody. Doesn't necessarily always have to be an elderly or a pregnant person. Just if you see somebody that needs to sit down more than you, give up your bus seat. Keep not packets, you know those like wrapped cases of water bottles, that kind of thing, you can get at the grocery store, like plastic water bottles. Keep a pack of those in your car, and then when you see somebody, a homeless person, or maybe a construction worker, or somebody that's just struggling with the heat, you know, if you see somebody struggling with dehydration, offer them a bottle of water. Arrange a party for an orphanage or a nursing home. If you have the money to do so, he suggests visiting a developing nation or a third world country, or closer to home, go to one of your low-income neighborhoods, as long as it's safe, you know. I wouldn't, it's like, when I was growing up, I was from San Diego County, had some friends from Compton. Yeah. So you gotta be careful when you go into those kind of neighborhoods, because even they were like, girl, you might want to stay close to me. But if it's a relatively safe neighborhood and you want to help out, you can do that closer to home, or just volunteer in your neighborhood. Write to an elected official you like and give them thanks for doing good work. You know, it doesn't always have to be a nasty letter to your official saying get off your ass and do this. Sometimes just give them thanks. Say, hey, I like what you're doing. Pick up stray trash you see in parking lot stores. I do that a lot. Give more compliments to strangers. Surprise hardworking coworkers with a snack, or offer to treat them to lunch, or even if you're feeling really generous, offer to trade shifts with them. Give a Walmart gift card to those in need throughout the year. And set up regular hangouts for dates with friends struggling with anxiety or depression, or just, you know, if they're having a hard time in general and need a pick-me-up. Do that. So those were just some of the ideas he mentioned in this book that I really liked. In the vein of helping strangers, this was one passage I liked. When you meet people who aren't like you, dig deep and find the courage to build a bridge. Make an effort to surprise them with your friendliness and acceptance. Look beyond their skin color, brands of clothing, political leanings, religious affiliations, lifestyle choices, and more. See people as an opportunity to be kind. Look to those who are different as God's unique creations who are equally deserving of your love and respect. Don't allow fear to perpetuate isolation and segregation. Racism, sexism, and other forms of bigotry are perpetuated because bridges and friendships aren't built between races, genders, faiths, political parties, age groups, social classes, cultures, and more. Regrettably, some people propagate a vision of division. They prefer to be isolated from those who aren't like them, the poor, the unpopular, the disabled. Others believe people deserve love and respect regardless of where they come from, how they look, or what they need. You want the best for all people, whether it's a homeless man, runaway teen, prostitute, drug addict, or white-collar criminal. You believe every life is important. You may not agree with another person's politics or lifestyle, but spend your life working so that everyone is treated fairly. There's no justification for hate crimes, name-calling, or prejudice. Some have demanded more tolerance among races, religions, and political parties, but tolerance is a non-issue when you love and respect and value another human being. Tolerance is temporary and often forced. Love is never-ending and freely given. One afternoon, Robert Pattinson, the star of Twilight, exhibited love and respect for a forgotten man relegated to living on a Los Angeles sidewalk. The actor stopped to befriend the homeless man who was humming a tune and strumming a beat-up guitar. Robert didn't try to avoid eye contact by racing past him or dashing across the street. Instead, he stopped to thank the man for his music, handed him a 20, and then proceeded to his car. A few minutes later, Robert returned carrying a brand new acoustic guitar. One bystander told the Sun newspaper that when the actor handed the homeless man the instrument, the man was shell-shocked. He had no idea who Robert was. I think he thought the guitar was stolen. He was looking left and right, half expecting the police to arrest him. But Robert quickly went back to his car and drove off. It's become fashionable to talk about kindness. Many wear t-shirts and display bumper stickers that advocate love and peace. But in their everyday lives, they actually practice selective kindness. They choose who they help and befriend based on how they feel that particular day. They're driven by emotion and attitude rather than by meeting another person's need. Their criteria would change, however, if they began to value each person as much as they do a family member. Actress Renee Zellweger and comedian actor Zach Galifianakis treated 87-year-old Elizabeth Haste as if she were their grandmother. After hearing she was living on tip money while volunteering at a California laundromat, the two actors decided to offer a helping hand. With limited resources, Haste has bounced between friends' apartments for years and had no place to call home. So Zach rented her a small apartment and Renee agreed to furnish it. Since then, Haste has become an extended member of Zach's family. She's even accompanied him to several Hollywood premieres. It's not something I'd ever dreamed I'd experience, she said, but I'll never forget it. If a voice inside your head says it's time to bolt from your comfort zone and befriend the lonely, feed the hungry, and comfort the weak, do it. Despite fears, doubts, do the right thing and extend a helping hand. After all, if you don't show kindness to somebody, it's possible no one will. Many deeds go undone and people go unloved because acts of kindness are buried beneath a truckload of insecurity and trepidation. Taking the first step or uttering the first word is the most difficult, but if you're able to cross that bridge, you might just discover that you have a lot in common. You may like the same music, dislike the same politicians, and enjoy the same food. Friendship may be closer than you think. Is there someone right now you need to befriend? It could be a homeless person, reclusive neighbor, foreign exchange student, a senior citizen, a disabled veteran, or a coworker of a different ethnicity. Just take the first step and speak from your heart. In no time, defenses will come down and new friendships will be born. There's no reason to take evasive action. You have a secret weapon in your possession. You have the power of kindness. So I just had one more passage I wanted to talk about before we go on to the second book here. This talks about choosing, it's one of the closing passages of the book, and it talks about choosing to extend kindness and choosing to live in happiness just because it's the way you want to be. It says, contrary to popular opinion, happiness isn't like a video game. With each good deed, you don't earn more points and advance to a higher level of happiness. If it were based on a point system, happiness would be difficult to maintain. Fortunately, happiness is the result of who you are, not just what you do. Your acts of kindness are an outward expression of the love and happiness that are in your heart. Whether your love comes from faith, character, or gratitude, you feel compelled to show kindness. You're not necessarily trying to earn happiness or manufacture fulfillment. Rather, because your genuine love for people, you want them to find happiness too. No one is forcing you to meet others' needs or demonstrate that you care. You do it because you want to. You do it because it's who you are. Perhaps you're just embarking on a life of radical kindness. If so, you may be saying, I'm not sure I can live this way. I don't think I have enough love in my heart. Well, in the next 24 hours, why not give it a try? You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. Just begin by doing the kind things in front of you and see what happens. You may be surprised by how much good you can accomplish in one day and the sense of fulfillment it brings you. Then just keep going. With each act of kindness, you will be watering a seed of love and happiness inside you. And in time, good deeds will become more natural because they're an outward expression of who you've become. Your decision to pursue a lifestyle of kindness means you want to make the welfare of others a higher priority. You want to help others experience laughter, friendship, full stomachs, good health, and lasting hope. Along the journey, there will be times when you disappoint yourself and others. Perhaps you'll say or do the wrong thing. Everyone does. Other days you'll wake up with a rotten attitude and want to escape people altogether. But be prepared to show yourself some grace. There are no kindness police who will slap you on the wrist when you make a mistake or miss an opportunity. Just keep doing what you know is right. By making the decision to be led by kindness, everything will change in the next 24 hours. From this point on, each day will be a new adventure, filled with exciting opportunities to be a force for good. Your decision will change the way you see the world and change the ways other people see you. People will see a difference in your smile, in your words, and in your deeds. Many will want to follow your example and choose a life of kindness too. Your decision will start a chain reaction that can ignite a movement of kindness. You can't change the world alone, but you can be a part of the change and inspire others to join you. And together you can make the world a lot kinder than the way you found it. Mark your calendar because this is a date you're never going to forget, and as of today, everything changes. So, what inspired me to connect that book with this book, Made for Goodness by Desmond Tutu, is Desmond Tutu is actually mentioned in Your Next 24 Hours towards the end of the book. And one of the things Desmond Tutu talks about in the next 24 hours that struck me was, the idea of people being hesitant to pursue acts of kindness because they feel like they're not enough by themselves to make much change. Well, Desmond Tutu talks about how if you get up every day and you make a commitment to do these little bits of good, he talks about how all these people doing their little bits of good will come together and change the world for the better as a whole. And it'll all add up from all these different people doing their little parts, and it'll end up overwhelming the world in kindness, which just I thought was a beautiful idea. When I was reading that, I remembered I had this book on my shelves by Desmond Tutu, and how do you say her name? Umpo, I think it is. That's how you pronounce that. He mentions in here how to pronounce her name. I think it's Umpo, his daughter. And they both happen to be archbishops. But this book came about from Desmond Tutu talking about how people knowing him for all of the... Sorry, there's like... I think I had an eyelash falling or something that was driving me crazy. But people knowing Archbishop Tutu for coming from this life of pain and hardship, and just throughout his life seeing these horrible things. He talks about how he came from a childhood of abuse. He had a very alcoholic father who also happened to be the elementary school principal at the school that Desmond went to, so he virtually had no escape from his father. Just all day, every day, had him at school, had him at home, and so he didn't come from the most comfortable home life. And then years later, when Desmond grows up and becomes a father himself, it just happens to be around the time that apartheid comes into Johannesburg, South Africa, and all hell breaks loose. And so he said over the course of his life and his career, people always ask him, how do you manage to do it? How do you manage to stay happy and optimistic? And how do you manage to maintain faith in this void of humanity that you've been witness to all of these years. And so this is his answer to that. He gives you some of the stories of some of the things he grew up with, and then tells you how he does maintain his faith and his positivity. And he admits it's not always easy. He did have moments where he was challenged and he felt himself crumbling a little bit, but he always seemed to find a way to bring it back around. And he would have a dark moment, and then somebody would come into his life and restore his faith in humanity. And so he shares those stories with you in here. So before I get into a couple of things that stood out to me in this book, I thought I would share this little bit he mentions in here about the apartheid. If you're not familiar with what that was exactly, maybe you've heard the term, but you don't know what all was involved. I thought I would just read his passage that nicely explains it, even though it wasn't a nice time. He says, "The effects of racism were first felt early in life and were experienced until death. The insults of racism, once learned, were employed daily. Sometimes the humiliations were small, seemingly insignificant things. I remember going to a shop with my father. He was the principal of the elementary school and a leading figure in the black community. I must have been about 6 at the time. I was so proud of my tall, handsome, educated dad. The person behind the counter, a little slip of a white girl, barely even a teenager, called out to him, 'Yeah, boy.' She was only living what she had learned, disrespect for an elder of a different race. I wondered how he was feeling to be so demeaned in front of his child. Years later, I sampled that humiliation. Our family was newly returned from England, and I was in Port Elizabeth with Mpo. We walked past a playground. It was full of children enjoying the warm sunshine, playing on the swings and slides, and Mpo wanted to go and join them in the play. I didn't have the words to explain to my 3-year-old daughter that she was not like those children. The park was for whites only. Apartheid was instituted as a sweeping set of laws and regulations that determined every aspect of a person's life on the basis of their race. It was experienced as a series of daily injustices and humiliations against people of color that stoked the anger of black people and dulled the sensibilities of white people. In isolation, each of the incidents I described earlier was a small thing. One of the things he mentions earlier in the book that he points out as one of the first clues he saw as things starting to go bad was he mentioned in one of the schools, I don't know if he was working with the school, or I forget if he was working with the school or if he was just visiting the school with his job. I forget the detail exactly, but he was at this school and it was announced that it had been decided that there was going to be a countrywide law across all of South Africa where all of the black students in school were not going to be given the lunch program anymore. As far as like we have here in America, the free and discounted lunch program. They had a program like that there, but it was decided that the white children would still be fed, but all of the black children would no longer get lunch program. And he said that was his first clue that things were bound to get bad from there. And they did. These hurts and hardships that white South Africans inflicted on their black compatriots were part of a process that got white people used to dehumanizing black people. Learning racism had to be a process. It wasn't an instinct. Racism is evil, and evil goes against the grain of creation. Because we are made for goodness, the instinct to do what is right must be eroded to allow us to do what is wrong. The people who codified and instituted the apartheid system recognized that reality. They understood the importance of the details of dehumanizing. Separate doors, different amenities, exclusive beaches and benches. They knew that the mechanics mattered. For example, the passbooks that everyone had to carry and the black people so hated. The document detailed the pass holder's age, race, and gender. The book that went on to record the owner's driving record of employment, and marital status. For black people, a series of endorsements detailed where they could live and where they were eligible to seek employment. These details made the passbook an effective tool to control the movements of black people. The book treated black South Africans like aliens in the land of their birth. The minutiae of segregation mattered. Separate and unequal schools, different neighborhoods, and the hierarchy of services were all created with due deliberation. Each privilege adopted without question made the next privilege seem more like an entitlement. With each ascent, the instinct for right was further eroded. With each ascent, the habit of choosing wrong was learned and ingrained. So, yeah, that gives you an idea of what apartheid was like from somebody who was directly there. In the aftermath of apartheid, Desmond Tutu takes up the position of Archbishop of Cape Town, and then he becomes the chairman of South African Truth and Reconciliation Committee, which was dedicated to helping people, victims of the apartheid families and such, rebuild their lives, not only their actual stuff, but emotionally and physically. His daughter was also there working with him. She served as a counselor to women and children that had been abused or sexually assaulted, raped, anything like that. She also worked with drug addicts. So they were in the thick of it as far as seeing people in their darkest days. And then from there, Desmond Tutu also went on to work in refugee camps in Darfur. So yeah, he saw just the darkest elements of not darkest as evil, but darkest as far as like people in the pits of their lives trying to come back from people that were evil. And experiencing all that, that's where people wanted to ask him, how do you stay positive during this? How do you stay hopeful and have faith when you're just seeing these people continually broken by life? From all his work from the apartheid and Darfur and everything, in I think in this book they said it was 1984. I think, could be wrong about that year, but he ended up becoming a Nobel Peace Prize winner. He also in here talks about how it's important to strive for kindness and compassion and empathy every day, but he also wants readers to be reminded that nobody expects you to be a saint. It's human to get angry. It's human to get depressed about a situation. You're going to have moments when you're down. You're going to have moments when you make the wrong choice. And maybe you do get a little bit selfish. He said, it's okay. All you have to do is sort of correct your path. That's all you got to do, is rededicate yourself to doing better each day. One of the other points he makes in this book that I thought was so powerful is he talks about the freedom of choice, which a lot of people bring up in various conversations. You hear it all the time, people talking about freedom of choice, especially in America. But one of the things he mentions is the thing that a lot of people don't talk about is that goes either way. A lot of times when people talk about freedom of choice, they talk about it in terms of what it can do for them and it working in their favor. But freedom of choice also means that you're given the choice to choose poorly. So that means that people in your life can make poor choices that directly affect your life, and you can be hurt and embittered by that. But that also leaves you with the choice to not go down the path they did. It leaves you with the choice to go for forgiveness. It also leaves you with the choice to do what they did and go down that path as well. He said there's, a coin toss to everything. You just have to decide which way you want to go. So I thought that was important that he brought that up, because he's right. A lot of people don't talk about it too much. But a couple of the things I wanted to talk about in here was one thing he mentions is this idea of Ubuntu, I think it says. It's the idea of everything being interconnected, but just the way he describes it, I just love this. But he says, in our own South African lexicon, godly perfection is described by the multifaceted concept of Ubuntu. Ubuntu recognizes the interconnectedness of life. My humanity, we say, is bound up with your humanity. One consequence of Ubuntu is that we recognize we all need to live our lives in ways that ensure that others may live well. Our flourishing should enhance the lives of others, not detract from them. In the 1980s, American college students showed Ubuntu when, on college campuses across the United States, they halted their studies to protest U.S. investment in apartheid South Africa. Their demonstrations provided the students no discernible benefit, but they provided a real comfort to black South Africans, a real challenge to a popular U.S. President Ronald Reagan, and a warning to the apartheid government that its days were numbered. God's invitation to wholeness always includes more than ourselves. God's invitation to wholeness is Ubuntu. For example, we are becoming more aware of the impact of our use of natural resources on the global environment. We are learning that fuel use in the United States affects sea levels in Fiji. Carbon emissions in India affect asthma in Iceland. The propellants and refrigerants used in many parts of the world are punching a hole in the ozone layer that will affect all of us. Our misuse of the earthly environment has been in the pursuit of a human vision of worldly perfection. We use what we want as we will because it seems to create the greatest benefit for our smallest circle of concern. I, me, and my. This human vision of perfection, this quest for more, bigger, faster, is not the perfection in God's dictionary. Muslim carpet weavers come closer to the ideal of godly perfection. They deliberately incorporate a flaw into each work of art they create. Only God, they say, is flawless. Only God can create flawlessness. So they do not strive for flawlessness, they strive instead for beauty. One other thing I wanted to close on that kind of goes along with what I was talking about every freedom of choice having a flip side and learning compassion and empathy and that sort of thing. This was just one story he shares in here that sort of illustrated that. It says, reconciliation is the work that does not end. Linda Beale described the unglamorous dailiness of that work to Impo. Linda's daughter Amy was killed in South Africa. Blonde, slim, and pretty, Amy Beale was the stereotypical vision of a California girl. It was her passion for justice, her academic ability, and a Fulbright scholarship that took her to South Africa. She worked on voter education and registration in advance of our first non-racial election. The day before she was due to board a plane to California, Amy drove some friends home to Gugulethu, a black township outside Cape Town where 7 boys were murdered. Neither Amy nor her friends knew about the protest march that was taking place that day. One settler, one bullet, chanted the angry mob. A hail of rocks and stones halted Amy's car. She was dragged from the car, beaten and stabbed. She died in a police station a continent away from her California home. 4 young men were convicted of her murder. They admitted to having inflicted the stabs that killed her. The new South Africa has no death penalty. They were sentenced to prison. When the Truth and Reconciliation Commission was formed, the young men applied for amnesty on the grounds that theirs was a political act. Linda and Peter Beale, Amy's parents, traveled to South Africa to support the amnesty application. The appeal was granted. To honor Amy's life and her commitment to the vision of a rainbow nation where people of every race can live together with dignity, the Beales established the Amy Beale Foundation. It has operations in the United States and in South Africa Township where Amy was killed. Amy's father, Peter, died in 2005. Linda now spends much of her year in South Africa. 2 of Amy's killers work with Linda at the foundation in Cape Town. For Linda Beale, reconciliation is not an abstraction. Every day of the year, she wakes up and her child is dead. On many days, she knows that she's going to get up and be with the people who killed her daughter. And on some days, she says she has to forgive them all over again. It's not a one-off thing. She didn't decide one day and in that instant complete the work of forgiveness and reconciliation. She told Mpo that it is really ongoing work. Forgiveness is work that Linda engages in every day as the mother of a slain child. Reconciliation is work that Linda has taken on as the head of her foundation. Her efforts draw us closer to that reconciled South Africa, that Eden where all our children can learn and laugh, love, and live in the goodness that is God's gift to each of us and God's dream for all of us. Finding our way back to goodness is ongoing work. To find our way home, we will need a skilled guide. And then one of the other things he does is, in each chapter, Desmond Tutu gives you a poem It's kind of a combination of a poem and a prayer, so he puts these things together so that if you have something you want to pray about, that he talks about, and you don't really know how to, put forth the prayer, or you don't really know how to voice what you want to say, he gives you a poem to sort of ponder on, or uses a prayer, or sort of guide you to help you through this journey of being more compassionate and making kindness a way of life. So after this long ass video, my battery here is about dead, so I have to stop and recharge, but that's the theme for this time around. Thanks for watching, and we will talk soon. Bye guys.